Regal hasn't sponsored you all yet?
No, right? We've been hustling for the Regal sponsorship for quite some time now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ride Home Podcast. My name is Abby.
Hey guys, it's Caitlin.
We are super excited to have a panel of guests for the first time on the Ride Home. We have some people that we've been following on Instagram for quite some time. We also have a very longtime friend joining us, so I wanted to introduce everybody. We have first Michael Napoli. He is our college friend. I went to film school with him. Michael was... Do you remember, Mike? My first project at DeSales was with you. We actually were teamed up together to do a presentation on Casablanca.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. That's so precious.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was honestly thinking of the project where we're doing the PSA, a smoking PSA. But yeah, good memory. Good memory.
So, Mike, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became interested in film, and also your favorite movie.
Well, my name is Michael Napoli. As Abby said, I went to Sales University with both Abby and Caitlin. I live in Astoria, which is a part of Queens in New York City. And I currently work in digital advertising at Univision. And my favorite film is Sidney Lumet's 12 Angry Men.
Love it. All right. And then we're going to kick it off to August next. This is August Keller from August Keller Writes on Instagram. You've been doing some really great Instagram reviews for movies that we've been following along with. Tell us a little bit about your journey with film and how you got into reviewing, and obviously your favorite movie as well.
I spent a lot of time in front of the TV as a kid. I just was always a fan of that medium. I went to film school at Long Beach State University. I didn't finish. Actually, I was on a few student film sets, and I just realized it wasn't for me. The actual filmmaking process is hard. I think you guys know that. It's a grueling profession, and I realized that I actually just liked watching and critiquing more than actually making it myself. I love Red Letter Media. I think they were the guys that really got me to love film crit, and I follow other stuff too, like Studio Binder. I think is another great resource for the breakdown of film technique. So I'm just a big fan. My favorite movie is I feel like this is kind of a loaded answer, but I love Fight Club. I know it's kind of like a lot of dude bros like that movie, but I think I like it for the right reasons.
Fight Club's a great movie. I don't judge anybody who says that. So yeah. I know it's a film bro movie, but I think it's great. Next, we have Ekwueme from E Squared Film Reviews, also a film reviewer on Instagram. Eric, what's your journey with film and what's your favorite movie?
My journey to movies really actually started in 2018 with MoviePass. So if y'all remember, the worst business decision ever made, but the best experience for people who love movies. Before that, I was more into television. But with MoviePass, I obviously wanted to get the most bang for my buck. So that summer, I was in the theaters every single day, just seeing things that I was never seen before, and fell in love with the medium. So for the last 5 years now, I've been headfirst into movies versus television and watching as much as possible. And then the reviewing came into effect of just needing a creative outlet. I feel like when you're in school, you get to write a lot. You get to create a lot, but in my particular role I'm in now, I don't get to do that as much. So this was just a creative outlet for me.
And then what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, feels like the most basic answer, but I'm representing it today. And that is Jurassic Park.
Yes. That's absolutely my top 10, for sure.
It's the movie that I feel like a lot of us in our generation fall in love with film. And then it's also one of those movies that when you revisit as an adult, you don't have almost the cringe embarrassment of of course a 9-year-old would like this, the 20-something me doesn't. It holds up perfectly. So
getting started on our Oscar pregame, we're going to go through some of the major categories because unfortunately we can't go through every single one of them. I wanted to kick it off with Best Supporting Actress because I think that's kind of a hot topic issue this year. Michael, what are your thoughts about the Best Supporting Actress category? what are your thoughts specifically about the Jamie Lee Curtis buzz? Because I know it's kind of a controversial topic right now.
I will say for Best Supporting Actress, it's kind of interesting because I think all the nominees are well deserved. Usually, this type of category lends itself usually for a lot of veterans, and we actually have two well deserved veterans that are here. And as you mentioned, the aforementioned Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yep.
I know that she was definitely a surprise winner at the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah.
For me personally, I was very surprised by that, but people have to understand that that's the union of actors that vote on that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times, the Oscars sometimes do lean into storylines and narratives of certain actors that get rewarded.
Right.
Whereas SAG is a different, they do and they don't, but SAG does a lot of the time. And so for this, Jamie Lee Curtis is a more seasoned veteran over Angela Bassett. But I honestly think, my hot take is that I actually think that the two veterans cause a split. And even then, Jamie Lee Curtis has two splits because she has her co-star with Stephanie Sue. So there's the outpouring of love for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Where does the lion's share of awards go to? And then you also have the veteran split between her and Angela Bassett. So I think that there's a potential split for Jamie Lee Curtis in two different scenarios. And there's a part of me that thinks that Carrie Condon is the one that comes away with it. Because she got the BAFTA win. The Oscars always tend to throw a surprise somewhere in their winners. And I think supporting actress is the category that will do it among all the acting awards. I think that's my hot take. I have money riding on it, so I think that's also why I'm going for it. But I also, if I were to pick my personal choice, like if I were to fill out a ballot, Carrie Condon would be my winner as well.
Okay.
I may be on the same. I may need to put some money on Carrie as well. I am curious though, if that were to happen, what is the backlash? Because it seems like Angela Bassett has been sort of the saving grace for that. A lot of Black women being left out in the major categories, and that assured Angela Bassett win seems like the Academy's one. Like, look, we did not forget Black women. So if Carrie does win, what is the backlash of this particular Oscars because of that?
Right. I think there's already a little bit of backlash too with Jamie Lee Curtis being favored over Stephanie Shu. Like, I think a lot of people are thinking that her Stephanie's performance was significantly more impactful or, more key to the movie than Jamie Lee Curtis's character, which Jamie Lee Curtis, don't get me wrong, I'm obsessed with Halloween. It's like I'm beyond
the
a
biggest
fan.
Jamie Lee Curtis fan.
Biggest Jamie Lee Curtis fan. But I will say, even though like a part of me, like my heart will literally soar getting to watch her like win an Oscar, I still don't think she deserves it out of the rest of the nominees, if that makes sense.
I agree with pretty much what everyone's saying. I think it seems to me like it's a 3-person race right now between Bassett, Condon, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Of those three, I prefer Condon, which makes me want to lean Condon. It's just strictly off of the performance, because I think the other two, honestly, they're borderline like the screen time is just not there for the other two. Like they're just not as much. And personally, if I were voting, I would actually vote Hong Chow. I think she was the most. She was almost like a lead in The Whale, and that movie just made me want to cry at least 2 or 3 times. So that's what gets me to vote for that acting performance.
Absolutely. I'm gonna say my should win is also Hong Chow. Like I loved The Whale. It was a beautiful movie, and her performance was incredible. She was like what grounded it. So she's my should win. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is going to take it. I think the momentum is going into the night. I think she's going to take it.
You just broke Michael's heart.
I know.
Oh, no.
That's your should win.
Michael will never recover from this. I think should win is Carrie Condon.
Okay.
I have to say I'm a fan, and I think that I think she had kind of a similar role in her film that Hong Chow had in her film. Like I think she grounded it as well, and she kind of held the whole thing together,
Mhm.
like the whole story throughout. So I think she should win, and then will win. I don't know. I'm with you, August. Like, I really think it could go a
Like
lot
either
of
way.
different ways,
Yeah.
because I also agree with you, Eric. Like, I think they could potentially face a lot of backlash if they don't give it to Bassett. Like, they're
Mhm.
always, they have been in the hot seat for a very long time, you know, and I
Deservedly.
think, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. I really can't say who
I
I
will
think will.
say, I don't think there's like a loser here in my mind. Like if somebody wins, I'm happy. Like
Yeah.
every single one of them, I'm like, you know what? I'll be happy for them if they win. So
They all have reasons to win. They all have like they're all like I don't think there's any bad performance. I think among all the acting categories, I don't think there really is a bad performance. It's really interesting to see this play out.
Mhm.
But I think this is the one category where it upsets. And honestly, like the Oscars for 95 years, they've had backlash, and they just kind of
They
let it
don't really care.
go aside.
Yeah,
They
They
really
had
don't
backlash
care.
last year, and it's just like they're okay with it, and life moves on. So
Yeah.
like and there's plenty, and it's just if it would happen if Angela Bassett got snubbed, it would just be a long line of performances
Yeah.
that were cute to win that just miss out, and it happens
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, moving on to a much less contested category, we're going to kick it off to Eric for actor in a supporting role. So this is basically like everybody is just keying in key, basically. It's just he's going to win it. What are your thoughts about that category? And do you agree with him being kind of like the assumed choice, basically?
I'm thankful that you all gave me quite literally the easiest category for it, and that is because I think Key Kwan deserves that role. We're talking about everything, everywhere, all at once.
Hmm.
He was the heart of the center of that movie, and in some ways, depending on how you watch it, he acts almost as a lead. When I watched that movie with my girlfriend, obviously the first time I loved everything about it, but I saw so much of myself in his character. So my first read of it was through his eyes, as a man who's trying to fight this battle through love. And of course, after watching it again, I see it more through all the other characters' eyes. So I do believe that his eventual win or predetermined win is
Hmm.
well deserved. I'm looking at the other individuals in that category, and the Banshees of Inisherin seems to, in a lot of these categories, seem to be canceling each other out just because
Yeah.
they've had so many quality performances. Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan was both amazing. I think if I had to go between one of those two, it would be Barry.
Yep.
Keoghan, what a performance, and oddly one of the funniest performances and heartbreaking performances I saw, all in
Hmm.
one. But then if I'm just saying the person that would get me out of my seat cheering would be Brian Tyree Henry.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed Causeway. That performance was really good. I don't think it necessarily deserves to win over these other performances, but if somehow, some way he ended up winning, um, I would be running around. You would see videos of me running
Just
around the
doing
house.
laps.
Just it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's one for us there, and he
Yeah.
puts in so much great work on the television side, and now moving into more of that movie star aspect. I'm just happy
Yeah.
that he's here.
I think Bullet Train was one of our favorite like dark horse movies this year. We loved it, and he was so good in it. We haven't
Yeah.
gotten to Causeway yet, but I can imagine he's amazing because he's like one of those actors that when he's on screen, you're just like locked in on him.
Yeah.
He's so good.
You can't see him on screen without feeling like I need to just watch everything about him.
Yeah.
And in that movie, to go toe to toe with Jennifer Lawrence and sort of her big return and still the show to be sort of he's an actor in a supporting role, but he feels like the lead in that movie.
Michael and August, do you have a should win or a person you would like to see win also?
He should win. I think he should win. And I agree that I think Keoghan is probably number two for me. But just a couple guys I was just thinking about who didn't get nominated that I'd like to shout out.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I think Mark Rylance in Bones and All.
Oh yeah.
He was a
Yes.
creep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
He's
was.
just so menacing and so. But like you don't. He's just so quiet and calm and collected, and you don't know why he's so menacing. I mean, That's how I felt. And I kind of feel lame for mentioning Ben Wishaw, because he's the only man and woman talking.
Mm-hmm.
But, he had that really, heartbreaking moment at the end that kind of, I think, almost stole the show for me.
Yeah.
That whole movie, I think that movie just got so under nominated, and I think he could have gotten nominated personally. But
we saw that yesterday, and I agree. He was such a unique performance throughout that movie because all the women were so like they all had this like edge to them, and having the man be the soft spot of the movie and having him be kind of like the emotional grounding was, I thought, a really interesting like twist to have that have the man be kind of the soft side of the film. I thought that was a really cool aspect to it.
I definitely do agree with Mark Rylance, though. I think that his performance, I'm just still really salty about all of the snubs that Bones and All, like, I can't talk about it. Like, Bones and All is just so under-nominated, and it pisses me off. So I could get on that soapbox for a really long time. But no, I think everybody is deserving, but no one's more deserving than Key, of course. Barry Keoghan would be number 2 for me as well.
Michael, how about you? Do you have any snubs or who you would like to see win over Key? Or
the moment I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once back in almost a year ago, I walked out of the film saying, because usually, like, I'm sure everyone sees films and like, oh man, I would love if the Oscars would go that route. More to my surprise, I had no idea that Everything Everywhere would be this well embraced, and he would be the default winner of the film overall. And then again, Barry Keoghan would be my second. And honestly, kudos to the Oscars for recognizing Brian Tyree Henry, and I would even say like recognizing Judge Hirsch, just because of one scene performances are so rare, like and they're so profound. Usually, there's something like a Viola Davis in Doubt. You have like a Beatrice Straight who's won for Network. So like kudos for them for just kind of being a little bit more just kind of going by the performance as opposed to people that have campaigned the most often. And then for performances that I really wish to have seen get nominated, despite the mixed reaction I had, the most entertaining part of Babylon was Brad Pitt by far. And I thought he was like the part that I really just enjoyed, and I enjoyed the story. And I actually think that his storyline was better than the artist as a movie overall, and does a better job of executing that story. And then another name that I really want to throw out, this is definitely a dark horse, but I loved Theo Yassi, who was not antagonist, but the love interest in Emily the Criminal. I thought he was really good. That was just a performance that stuck out to me.
I'm gonna be the dark horse here and say that if it was up to me, I would vote for Barry. Nice. I think his performance was human. I think we get a lot of representation of mental illness in the past as like they're these freaks, and I think his performance was so human and so real. So many of his lines, it like my heart literally like ripped into like shreds. So he would have been my vote for sure, but still I think he is absolutely deserving.
I will say one last thing what I really liked about Ke Kwan and what kind of stood out from the movie is like the fact that like just like the different types of hats that he puts on, it's the same character, but like the different genres that he's jumping into and in the universes, it's just like it's just so surprising because not every actor can really do that. And just to see just like this veteran or wherever he was just kind of come in and completely just go 100% into it was just like such a loving surprise. And I think that's why it really just kind of resonated. And I think a lot of actors really can't do that. I think just because of their brand, their image, and for someone like him just to really have a little bit more flexibility and freedom as an actor to kind of play within that role is just so wonderful as a viewer to see that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. All right. So then August, we're going to kick it off to you for the 2 screenplay categories. So adapted, we'll start with adapted, and I'll just list them off quickly, is All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, Living, Top Gun Maverick and Women Talking. Caitlin audibly went to Glass Onion, so that's how she feels about that. August, what are your thoughts on adapted screenplay? Who is your should win, will win, and do you have any snubs there in that category?
Well, I think the snub for me is The Whale. Like, that's adapted, right? And I mean, that movie really moved me. But between all these listed, I think Women Talking is going to win, and I think it should win. Out of this group, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. Go with Women Talking. It's the most talky. It's tackling important topics, and I think it's really kind of I don't know if nuanced is the word. All these women agree in the big picture, but they all have these different perspectives, and they're all very fleshed out. And I just thought it was a very thoughtful, emotional movie.
Yeah. I think the thing that stood out to me the most, again, we just saw this yesterday, so it's fresh on my mind, was that the dialogue was it was like watching like water move. Like it was this fluid, they all were playing off of each other. And then there were, obviously the two little girls off in the corner that were kind of, adding the little comedic moments where it was just such a balanced screenplay. And I really appreciated that about Women Talking. So I completely agree with that. Michael, Eric, do you have any thoughts about adapted?
My only thought about adapted is just how weird of a of a list of nominees this is. I'm looking at it. I enjoyed Glass Onion a little bit more than you all, but I would not have put it in one of the top 5 of scripts. I thought it was fun, but it wasn't necessarily well written.
Now my question was Knives Out nominated?
It was.
It was, okay.
Yes.
If that was not nominated and Glass Onion was, that's when I would throw hands.
So yeah, that was and then Top Gun Maverick, which I love Top Gun Maverick, but I don't think any of us are here because of how it was written.
Right.
So I look at this group, and I haven't gotten a chance to watch Living yet. That is sort of my one hole there. I look at this group, I'm like, only Women Talking is the only possible winner in this group.
It's just kind of I don't want to say uninspired, but it's a little. I mean, the surprise of Top Gun Maverick is apparent, and I definitely would recommend. There's a video essay by Nerdwriter that kind of talks about how Top Gun Maverick like lays out a scene and how they build like dramatic tension within like understanding the stakes. So that's like there's a lot more I give nods to, but I think that's really more of a director level and editing than it is the writing. But I think Women Talking is by default the winner. I actually was at the Museum of Moving Image in Astoria, and there's the current exhibit that has like some like screenplays, like the shooting screenplay and the actual screenplay that Sarah Polley did for the movie.
Cool.
And it's so rare that a film can be so entertaining and dramatic from the dialogue. For that reason, I think she's going to win. And I don't think there's really any like snubs. There's probably like some movies I can kind of nod at. I think the only one that I think of adaptation is like, I would love to have seen After Yang get nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, but that's about it. But that's cool. My take.
Yeah. So I think for me, like it's an obvious for Women Talking. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should just not have had Glass Onion in there. Like
it is really funny though, like seeing, because this year there is so much diversity in terms of genre that it is so weird seeing Top Gun nominated with Women Talking. After seeing like those two movies, it's just shocking to think like, oh wait, like those are in the same category being nominated for something. It's just crazy.
It is.
Sure. So we're going to kick it off to August again for original screenplay. We have Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. Now that is a packed group right there. That is
the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's really true. August, what are your thoughts on original screenplay?
This category is just more competitive in general compared to adaptive. If I were betting, I think I would lean towards Everything Everywhere All at Once. That just seems to have that movie is just on a warpath right now. And I mean, it's fair. It's a great screenplay, very original, very fun, very quirky. Everything Everywhere All at Once is my favorite movie, but if I'm being objective, I think I would probably vote for Banshees. I think it's just the more righty movie. You know, a lot of dialogue driven, and very interesting, subtle topics they're getting into. It's very interpretable. All the characters are. I just feel like all the actors had so much to work with, and they really got to stretch their legs with that.
And so funny without really trying. Like, it was just so naturally funny.
Effortless, yeah. I want to shout out After Sun. Did not get nominated, and I mean, I think that's a shame. That movie was pretty darn special.
Original screenplay is one of my favorite categories to always follow, because it's just anything could really kind of come up. And it could just be a surprise nomination. There's always a surprise writing nomination. But I have to think of who will win. I think it's a 2-horse race between The Banshees of Inisherin and Everything Everywhere All at Once. My winner would be, my personal winner would be The Banshees of Inisherin, and I think what will win will be The Banshees of Inisherin.
Okay.
Because if you have to award that movie, the movie I think is the second or third nominated movie. Where is it going to get that trophy? Like, is everyone assuming that are we going to believe that it's just going to walk away with a goose egg of Oscars? So what's the best chance that it's going to win? So I think Martin McDonagh will get the prize, but I wouldn't be surprised if Everything Everywhere All at Once won, because I think as of this century, or maybe even within the 90s, it's like the most creative concept, and the how the screenplay works. So I think of like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Her, Birdman, just all these like unique films. Get Out, like the idea wins the Oscar, not necessarily the most well written or the best like dialogue. So it really is like pure imagination versus like a play. So like it really depends like what the Academy wants to go for. And I think that's why the Banshees will kind of come out in the end. But kudos to any one of those nominees that any of the nominees that get the prize. So
now it's no secret. I do not like The Fabelmans. I hated The Fabelmans. I'm going to put that out there into the universe. So I'm just going to leave that off the list. But I think the other 4 nominees are all of them across the board. Like, I love this list. And I think growing up, like, original screenplay was also like the category I watched the most, because I wanted to be a writer. Yeah. And so, I still, even though I'm an editor now, it's still just the one I lock into. So I'm going to say I also would give it to Banshees of Inisherin if it was me personally. But I think the momentum of Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to take it. Eric, what do you think?
So I agree with Michael that I do think Banshees will win, because this just looks like the place to honor that movie. I don't think that they'll win much else, even though it is one of the best, honestly, top 5 movie of the year for me. The momentum is going towards Everything Everywhere All at Once, so I can see that winning. But I just wanted to bring up Tar, because I thought that the more I've watched that movie, I think I've seen it 3 times now, the funnier
you have
it gets.
Time on your hands. We got a Tar super fan.
Listen to this. We did a double feature of Tar and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh my God.
The longest night of our lives. We started at like 6 p.m. and we had drinks in the middle. It was a great time.
Amazing.
But it was a lot to ask of my friends. But I think Tar, it's funny in subtle ways. It's ambiguous in the right way. Sometimes I think ambiguity can just be either writers or directors just not wanting to give it an ending, or not thinking of how to actually end it. This one, it seems like Todd Field's idea, but he left it open enough for all of us to interpret it in whatever way we think. And that's just, to me, that's the fun of movies, is I get to watch somebody's vision, but then I get to infuse my thoughts into it, and the writing allowed that. So if I were giving it to somebody, I probably would give it to Tar. But I can see Banshees taking it.
I'm so glad you gave that nod, Eric.
Yeah, I'm so glad too, because I really love Tar. Yeah. I think that was definitely in the top 5 for me this year as well. And I think I have to agree with you on the writing. Like, it was so for me, it was so captivating, and it was just, the film itself was captivating. But I think I also liked that, like that we had some liberties with it, and that we could kind of, you know, take it where we wanted to take it and kind of imagine what could happen. And I thought that, I agree with you. I think that's just the fun of movies in general. But I also love Banshees so much too. So I don't know. I think it'll probably go to Banshees, but I don't know. I think it's really honestly a tie of who it will go to is either going to be Banshees or Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't see it going to anyone else, but I agree with you. I think Tar deserves a little bit more attention than it got.
But how great is it though that we're sitting here talking about a movie that has literal hot dog fingers in it being something that's like like nominated for original screenplay, or like you know, we talked about this in our episode of the podcast where like Everything Everywhere All at Once has such a boyish sense of humor, and to see it like thriving in this kind of environment, like original screenplay, and we're talking about best picture and stuff like that, it's really fun to see where this Oscar season is going, and we're seeing such different movies being nominated, and actually not only being nominated but being like in the conversation. So I'm really excited about that.
I hope the Academy got copies of the Triangle of Sadness screenplay and just saw the section of just like every other line was like vomits, poops,
and she shits herself, and vomit.
And then the boat goes out. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to go to Eric now we're going to do cinematography next. So our nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Elvis, Empire of Light, and Tar. This was a very strange category for me. Was it strange for you, or was this, you know, hitting the nail on the head for you?
This did feel very strange, and Bardo and Empire Light are two movies that I was not able to see. And I wanted to see Empire Light because of the Roger Deakins of it all. And I mean, that man, he's like the John Williams of this category. He just wins. He only puts out bangers in terms of cinematography. So I did not get the chance to watch that movie, but it didn't feel, and for those of you who watched it, it didn't feel like it was the type of movie that had too much showiness in cinematography. From the movies that I saw, All Quiet on the Western Front was beautifully shot. It was a devastating movie, but the visual, the blueness of it all really brought me into that story. And then the other thing that I will say about this category with Elvis, with Mandy Walker, potentially, I think it's maybe the first woman winner in cinematography, or one of the few women winners in cinematography. I think that would be incredible. Elvis was a very hit or miss type movie for me. I think we'll talk about that in Best Actor. The look of it was unique. I can say it was unique.
Yeah. I think for me, All Quiet on the Western Front was one of my favorite movies this year. And I think if I'm just like looking at this list, I'm just locked in on that as the winner personally. But Banshees of Inisherin was gorgeous. And I have no idea how that was not nominated. And I think also my dark horse snub was Bones and All. I think the cinematography in Bones and All was just... it was like watching like a painting on screen. And I think I also haven't seen the two that you saw or that you mentioned, Eric, Bardo and Empire of Light. Michael, August, have you seen either of those two?
I saw them both. And I'm really happy to see Bardo in there. I know that movie was not very well received. I thought it was very daring in general. And I think that's why it turned a lot of people off. I was with it to just be weird. That's great. Empire of Light's weird because it has so many interesting people involved in that movie, and it was a little underwhelming. It was good. It was very good. It was even a little overlooked, but I think this category is so competitive this year that I don't think it really deserved to quite make the top 5 nominations personally.
Right. Michael, how about you? Did you see either of those two, or?
I did not see Empire Light, but I did see Bardo. I saw that on, what is it? I think I saw it on 70 millimeter, I saw it on 35 millimeter in Manhattan. Nice. And I'm the complete opposite of what August said. And I actually think that its nomination is the worst nomination among all the categories this year. I thought that I thought the cinematography, especially for Iñárritu, was just very like a step lower than the Revenant cinematography, and I just thought that it was nothing that I haven't seen already from this filmmaker, and I just thought that the palette was just very muted and just very uninspired. And honestly, I think this whole category there could have been a lot more to the imagination. Like, I would have loved to have seen the flight sequences really be shining for Top Gun Maverick. And I think for me, there's only one clear winner for cinematography, and I will send my flowers to Tar.
Yeah.
I think Tar has in my opinion, the best cinematography performance. This is the one dream win that if I were to really be surprised, like what Eric's saying, jumping out of my seat, the cinematography for Tar is the one that stands out, because I think it reminds me of like looking at like those like high fashion magazines. Like, they're just like, because for me, I think recently within the past couple of years, like, it's just the most cinematography, long shots, or like the prettiest lighting. But I think for Tar sticks out, it's just like a lot of the compositions that just like that stood out, and just like silhouettes. And it's just not often you see a drama where it's just humans just being photographed, and she's photographed really well. Fingers crossed for Tar.
Tar really was one of those movies where, like, when I got out of it, I felt like a little tired. Like, I was just like, oh my God, I'm a little bit sleepy after that. But like, the more I thought about it, I was just like, wow, that really, like, they did that. Like, they really did that. And I agree that the composition of so many of those shots, especially like, I thought what was really interesting particularly was the framing on Cate Blanchett, depending on where she was in her story, where when she felt big, it was shooting her from down low. And when she was small, it was shooting. And it's such like simple movements, but it was really successful in doing that.
Honestly, I do have to agree with Tar, though. I feel like the cinematography, like, I'm kind of a music nut myself. I think that the cinematography almost felt musical.
Yeah.
It felt like it was kind of moving as if it was its own score. Like, the camera was its own instrument. I don't know. I felt like the whole thing was just very musical.
It felt like a symphony. The whole movie did.
It really did. And I think it definitely deserves it. I didn't see All Quiet on the Western Front because Abby told me I wouldn't like it, because it was very graphic. So I haven't seen it. But I think, I'm really sad about Banshees and Bones and All not being in this category.
I especially think if we're looking at this list, like, if you watch Banshees and then you watch Elvis, you're going to tell me that Elvis gets the nomination over
right.
Like, that's I guess that's where I'm getting fussy, but
I definitely, we can get into it later. I definitely loved Elvis, but I don't think it's deserving of cinematography at all. I don't think that's where it shines. So.
Yeah.
I would vote for All Quiet, and I just want to shout out a few movies that I think I would like. I think Decision to Leave, I think, was a really well shot movie. I think Babylon was really well shot. And I know this is kind of a controversial movie to bring up. I don't know if I should, but I want to just say that I liked how Blonde was shot too. It had a lot of interesting choices, kind of in the same line as Bardo, where I thought I just appreciate the experimentation, even if it didn't always make a lot of sense.
One other movie that I feel like this is the place that I can at least shout it out is Nope. I really Nope.
You can shout out Nope for any category. I'll agree with you. So just go for it.
This is a Nope safe place here, because I feel like people got too into their minds about what a Jordan Peele movie should be, that they didn't give this a fair shot. I mean, it's of anything, it is by far his most beautiful film, and it is shot so well for a movie that has so many night scenes to be so clear. And the intention on how he created the night scenes to be so clear was interesting to listen to on the podcast he did. So I just wanted to shout out Note One, because it was totally blanked in the nominations. But if there was one place, this, and I guess sound design as well would have been where I would have placed it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to keep with the technical categories, and we're going to move on to editing next. So, August, what are your thoughts on editing? So we have Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, and then Top Gun Maverick. This is a loaded group again. Very contested, I think. But what's your pick here? And do you also have any snubs?
I like the inclusion of Tar. I think a lot of times people confuse best editing with most editing, and I think Tar does a good job of doing more with less. But I think if I were, I think what should win and what I think will win. What should win, I think I'd vote for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I know it's kind of boring to keep saying that movie's name. Yeah. I think Top Gun has a chance of beating it, though. It's got the vroom vroom of it all, and and
I love it. There's no other way to put it. That's
so accurate.
And the big snub for me is Babylon. I think that movie. I know it's 3 hours long, and that kind of turns people off, but there's just so much pop to it. I thought that movie was just hilarious, and I think the editing really elevated that.
I think for me personally, when I got out of Everything Everywhere All at Once, I am an editor by trade. I think my brain exploded and I said, that has to win. I was just like that. Yeah. I don't care what else is nominated. That has to win. So that's kind of my shoe-in that I would vote for. But Eric, what are your thoughts on editing as well?
Copy and paste with all what August said there. I thought Tar was edited. So again, maybe Tar is my favorite movie of the year. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is my favorite. But the more I think about Tar, it's the movie that I wrestle with the most. And I thought it was edited in a way that they took away some of that sureness so that I could wrestle with it. But when you were talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once, that is a perfect example of best editing and most editing happening in one movie. So I would love to see that rewarded there. And exactly same snub, Babylon. I liked it way more than I feel like a lot of people did. And it's the editing of it, how it was paced for a 3-hour movie is why I liked it.
Yeah. Michael, did you see Babylon?
I did. Yeah. That I saw that on Christmas Day.
That's right. Now, do you agree that should be in the conversation for this?
No, I don't think it should have been nominated. I think where it got nominated is appropriate. I will say, I think some of the editing was a little problematic, and I don't know really that's an editing thing as opposed to Chazelle's vision. But I personally wouldn't have given it a nod. I think my winner, and I think what should win, and what I think will win will be Top Gun Maverick.
Okay.
I think it's kind of funny because when you look at Everything Everywhere All at Once and Top Gun Maverick, you're really seeing editing of digital effects and then editing of practical effects. And I think seeing the achievement of the flight sequences and just how it just kind of lays out the story just so distinctly and so just up front to the point. There's nothing that feels miscommunicated. There's nothing every intention, you get exactly how every scene is constructed and what is the goal of each scene. And that is more of I think that's the credit to the editing of Top Gun Maverick as opposed to the writing. And I think because of the editing, the writing got rewarded. Somehow and for me, I just think, and of course, Everything Everywhere All at Once has a lot of the most editing. But I think just looking at what has been won in the past, something like Mad Max and Gravity, just a lot of vehicles involved, Ford versus Ferrari.
You're speaking my language, mentioning Mad Max.
Planes have to be recognized right now. So we got all forms of transportation except for a plane. But I honestly think I would not be disappointed with if any of these winners. If any of these movies won, I think except for Elvis, but
I think we're all kind of like Elvis. Yeah,
but I think good for the Academy for usually the most loud, the most obvious editing, but good for them for kind of recognizing two dramas, just straight up dramas that just seeing dialogue and conversations between people and when to cut. They're getting smarter. This year they got smarter.
Yeah. And we're just going to touch really quickly because Michael Napoli, I could not do a podcast with you and not talk about animated feature film.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to leave it off. And then when I was like, oh, Mike's going to be on it, I have to talk about this. So animated feature film this year, we haven't seen, I think we've seen one of them.
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen Only Turning Red.
Oh, wow.
We have Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots, The Last Witch, which I love that's an Oscar-nominated movie. Like, I just love that. The Sea Beast and Turning Red. Michael, my animated guy, you have to cover this one. What's your pick for this year?
The one that will win, Del Toro will win his third Academy Award for Pinocchio. It's just absolutely beautiful. The achievement of stop motion. I think that he just did such a wonderful job of creating such a world filled with imagination. And I would say the one I would love that I would see win would be Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Because I think that one, like, it's not the most animation, but I think it's like, if I had to underline the word film, it would be Marcel the Shell. If I had to underline the word animation, it's Del Toro's Pinocchio. Gotcha. But of the one I would wish that got snubbed would actually be, my favorite animated film was Apollo 10.5, A Space Age Story, which is Richard Linklater's like semi-autobiographical story of him growing up during the space age. And it kind of adapts certain techniques that he used for waking life, and a scanner darkly does like that Photoshop like realism look.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it, but that was just really fun to kind of watch like someone's memory. I haven't seen The Sea Beast nor Puss in Boots, but I heard there's a lot of traction for Puss in Boots. I think
that's
what I don't think it's gonna win. I think Del Toro. I think Del Toro's gonna get it.
The only one we saw was Turning Red, and we both loved it.
I really loved Turning Red, and I thought it was really timely as far as like what's going on in our country with Asian Americans. And I think that it was like a very perfect time for that movie to come out, for everyone who is an Asian American to feel like empowered and feel like they're represented, especially in an animated film, especially for kids, because it's such a scary time right now, I feel like. To be a kid in general.
Well, she's a middle school guidance counselor. So I think watching Turning Red was like that hit.
Yeah, it hit me right in the feels in a lot of ways. And I think that I really related to it just like from the standpoint of having been a teenage girl.
In that time period,
In that time period, like I was just like, wow, like this is incredible. And it was just so on the nose and felt so relatable.
Yeah.
So I was really happy to see that was nominated, because I liked it way more than I expected to.
Yeah. We're going to move on now, and we're going to go to the 4 big categories. So we're going to do Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Picture. Eric, we're going to go to you for, I think, one of the more controversial groups in this list, which is actor in a leading role. I know a lot of people are kind of handing it to Austin Butler and just assuming that he's going to win. That might be a little controversial for some people. How do you feel about that?
What I will say is that Austin Butler was the best part of that movie. Again, Elvis, I mean, I don't know how much of a compliment that is, considering our thoughts on Elvis, but he did a great job in that role, and at least kept me interested for those however many hours. But it feels weird that he has had this sudden surge, and it feels very, very traditional that an actor who's portraying a famous person, specifically a famous singer, is getting an Oscar for it. I would give this award to Brendan Fraser just because of his incredible work within The Whale. Abby and Caitlin, we talked on Instagram that I did not like The Whale that much. But I thought that Brendan Fraser infused so much empathy and nuance into a character that could have been just a caricature that I would love. And then there's, of course, with all the Renaissance and everything, I would love to see him rewarded in that way.
I would love that. I'm a little exhausted with the biopic winner just always winning. It just feels like it's like, every year that happens. Even though he was so good in it, I'm just like, I would be heartbroken if Brendan Fraser didn't win.
When it comes to the award season, it's just like people just push and push and push, and I feel like the Academy just gets so used to the same names that they just tend to check the same boxes. Like for me personally, if I were to choose someone for best actor, I would have loved Gabriel LaBelle.
I was kind of surprised he wasn't nominated. I'm not gonna lie.
Who was the Steven Spielberg character. I thought he did a really good job of just kind of. He just did something a little bit more nuanced than everyone else in that film. So I guess I'm choosing Austin Butler by default, just because of the biopic. Like to nerd out a little bit, since 2000, half of the performances that won Best Actor were someone that was playing a real life person.
See,
which is like, wow, that is such a boring thing. And some of the performances are great. And honestly, and I hate to say this, but I think the influence of I think it was Priscilla Presley passing at the right time, and Austin Butler is just doing the most work. He's not someone I would pick, even though there are some really great scenes, and I think he does a really good job. And I think my personal choice would be Colin Farrell, because I think he just does something a little bit different. And I just love, like, I think his best roles is when he plays a little bit of a buffoon, and he does it so lovingly that you do follow him through, because otherwise he could just be very insufferable. He's not someone who whines and nags. He actually just seems very naive, and
he's like a lovable.
Yeah.
So it's just I just found it funny just to see him just not get the point, and just continually poke the bear. And I think my second choice would be, and I congratulate the Academy for nominating someone like Paul Mescal, because that's an actor, like an indie role, but it just felt more like I was watching a human being as opposed to someone portraying someone that is real, or someone that is putting on physically transforming. It's just like I want to understand what this person is like. And that he would be my second choice.
Now, August, did you happen to see Living? Because we haven't talked about Bill Nighy in this category. Did you
I have not. No, I have not seen Living.
Has anyone seen Living?
I haven't either.
Okay, so we all haven't seen. So we don't know. So we don't know. Good job, Bill Nighy.
You probably did great.
Yeah.
You were great in Love Actually.
Yeah. What if they played the Christmas song if he won? I know he won't, but like they play the Christmas song that he makes in Love Actually when he accepts it. August, who's your should win, will win for this one?
I think, I'm team Brendan Fraser, but I also love Paul Mescal. Those two are like 1A, 1B to me. I forget, I think, what is it? Butler won BAFTA, Fraser won SAG, right? So I think it's between those two if I were betting.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd say Butler is what I put my money on, even though I don't. I think he got the voice down really great, which is a hard thing to do because that voice is so like kind of like a character, like a caricature of itself at this point. But the snub, I want to shout out John Boyega in Breaking and Breaking. That he just carried that movie, and I think it just wasn't seen by enough people. Is probably why I didn't get nominated, but he was great. He did it all.
I think the issue, like, I love we've established that I love Austin Butler, like, to look at him. So that's a whole separate issue. But I think the issue that I'm having with so many people being nominated for playing another person is, are they really acting well, or did they just study a lot?
Yeah.
Because you have to put in a lot of work, yes, to play a real person, but is it a question of are you the best actor? Or are you the best student? Like, did you just pour yourself into the content? I think that's my issue with that. And I think Colin Farrell and Brendan Fraser did such a more real job of acting.
They built their character from the ground up.
Right. And they didn't have to do that studying of like just watching content to play another person. And I think that their roles were so much more human, even though Elvis is a real person and we all know him and can relate to that. But I think their roles and their performances were so much more human.
Yeah.
And they just did such a better job of just being a real person.
Now, we're going to kind of move from that to Best Actress, because I think I have never seen somebody play a character who is fictional and have me actually Google who is who is Tar? I literally, in my mind, thought to myself, "Oh, this is a biopic." Like it had to be. Yeah. So talking about actress in a leading role, I'm going to kick it to you again, Eric, because you're Team Tar. Cate Blanchett. I have to say, for me, this was the performance of the year. What are your thoughts in this category? Because we are leading into the Oscars with a lot of momentum for Michelle.
It's 1A, 1B for me. So I do think Cate Blanchett, exactly what you said. I mean, she duped many people, not just you, in thinking that this was a real person. But of course, Michelle Yeoh carries that film and has carried so many films. And it's Cate Blanchett has already won 2 Oscars. There's this opportunity to not give it, she earned it, but award Michelle Yeoh. So either of those, I would be incredibly happy for. I think in terms of just watching the show, Michelle Yeoh's acceptance speech would probably be a lot more interesting and exciting than Cate Blanchett's, because she has made it. Kate has made it.
Cate Blanchett will be like, "Thanks, guys."
Yeah, Kate has made it clear that not that she doesn't want this 3rd Oscar, but she's not campaigning for it. So to answer your question, I would enjoy both of those. Obviously, we have the Andrea Riseborough controversy,
and the Anna de Armas. That's also a controversy.
That definitely is. All of the vitriol towards Andrea Riseborough does not need to go towards Anna de Armas, but towards that nomination. To me, I just don't think it needed to be there. But I am curious, Michael, because you're bringing a lot of really interesting facts. If you have any thoughts about that surprise nomination.
It's interesting because you can kind of look at it in a multitude of ways. I think the controversy surrounds who was nominated, not in the manner of, well, it is who gets nominated and how they went about it. And that can go to a larger theme of who people in the industry have exposure to, what types of people they have exposure to in the industry. So I think Andrea Riseborough just happens to have that swell.
Has anyone seen her performance, by the way?
I saw that. Yeah, it's actually, I rented it on Amazon because I just wanted to check it out. She was pretty good. I thought like the movie is pretty standard. It's a typical like addict story, but for an actress that really like a solid character actress, like she just carries a movie. I found she was very good, but I thought she was very insufferable because of from a writing level. Actually, like I think only 2 of the people that I would choose are Michelle and Kate. So sometimes it's just like how well they get campaigned at is as well as like who they just want to champion.
In my mind, that kind of is what happened with Michelle Williams. Like, I feel like, I don't know, she just kind of gets put in the conversation all the time. And I don't necessarily buy into her as an actress. I haven't really like latched on to any of her performances, to be honest. And in my opinion, she was what made me hate The Fabelmans. Her character was just completely insufferable. And I know that, it's based on Steven Spielberg's mom, so I apologize, Steven, for bashing your mom if that's how she actually was. But I couldn't stomach that character, and so I think it was really hard for me. I don't know if I have any like snubs that I would like replace her with.
For personal subs for me, I just want to give out 3 quick names. I thought Audrey Plaza and Emily the Criminal was excellent. I know Paul Mescal got nominated, but I really think Frankie Coro from After Sun was equally as good as the daughter. And then there's an actress. Her name is, I'm going to probably mispronounce her name, Guzlaji Malanga, from a movie called Saint Omer, which was France's submission for international feature. I thought she was very truly devastating in that role.
August, what are your thoughts on actress, and especially, I think you mentioned Blonde earlier. Like, do you have any thoughts about Ana de Armas being in that group?
Well, I will say that I'm one of the few people that liked Blonde. And I know that's a whole conversation in itself. And I do think that she was a big part of it. I think the writing really was pretty one note, which I think is one of the reasons people hate that movie. And I thought she did a good job of really bringing as much variation to the performance as she could. She's just sad the whole movie, sad, sad, sad. But she just brings little different levels of it and like hope and like different layers. So I don't hate that. I don't think she necessarily deserves to be the top 5, but I'm not too angry about it. I think who I would pick is Kate Blanchett. Who I would bet on, it's a tight one. I love Michelle Yeoh. I'd be happy to see her win. Yeah. I just don't think she necessarily brought the like intensity. I'm looking for someone to make me cry. I know it's kind of boring to say Olivia Colman's name at this point, but
it's never boring to say Olivia Colman. you can just give her every nomination ever.
Yeah, she really, her performance in Empire of Light is like, she's just like this quiet little like nervous lady, and then there's a scene at the end that just kind of recontextualizes the whole performance. Obviously Danielle Detweiler, I think that's probably the biggest snub of the whole night. And I also want to just shout out Mia Goth in horror. She's great, but I'd still go with Kate. Obviously, I think that might be Blanchett's best performance, at least that I've seen.
Yeah. And that's I agree.
Same.
I honestly, for me, this was the performance of the year. Also, Kate Blanchett and Tar. I think you agree because we've talked about it numerous times. I love Michelle Yeoh, and I will be rooting for her. If she wins, I'll be so happy for her. But I think there's always going to be a part of me that's like, I wish these two movies didn't come out in the same year, because if any performance deserves an Oscar, it is Kate Blanchett and Tar. And I think in any other year, I think it would have been a shoo-in, no competition. No one would have even talked about it. But obviously, there's so much momentum for Michelle Yeoh that there's going to be a decent amount of competition there.
Who I would pick and who I would think will win, it's Kate all the way.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Simple.
Money down. Simple. Now we're going to move on to directing. This one was, now that I have seen Women Talking, I'm upset. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm going to go to Michael first on this. What are your thoughts? I know you're a huge Steven Spielberg guy. How do you feel about this category?
This is tough because director is also, outside of original screenplay, director is also my favorite category to look at. I love when the directors and the writers just go for what they think is the best.
Yep.
So I think like the nomination of Ruben Östlund was the surprise.
Yeah.
Even though some pundits were predicting it. But I think the way that Triangle of Sadness is like, you can't count out the winner of the Palme d'Or. So I was just very surprised that it had that much momentum. It's tough because like you're on the fence of, do you nominate a person based on what they are, like physically, or their gender, their makeup? Are you checking the box off to hit a quota, or but it's also you're nominating and awarding art. So like I'm always pro just pick what you think is the best that executes that category, that represents that category. If I were to choose a female director, I wouldn't choose Sarah Polley. I'd choose Charlotte Wells for After Sun as a director. I think that was a little bit more of an audacious directorial take. And I actually went to a Q&A after Sun, when she was there, and she was talking about how it was based on her relationship with her father and how she like had to kind of like filter out certain things and kind of keep certain things ambiguous about her relationship with her dad, but keep it universal. And I think just overall tonally, she just did a really excellent job of keeping it very simple. But a lot of depth in creating the relationship between Paul Mescal and Frankie Coro.
Absolutely.
But I think overall in this category, this is a really strong one. I still want to see Steven Spielberg win a third Academy Award.
I know you do.
Will that actually happen? I don't know. I give him a lot of credit for kind of showing his life and showing like, despite the mixed reaction about his mother, just kind of showing his personal life on screen. I think the closest thing is like, besides that really pertains to who Steven Spielberg is, there's two movies that do that. It's Schindler's List, that pertains to who he is from his culture and where he's coming from, and then E.T. about his family life. So to kind of have that fast forward almost 40, 50 years later, and to really just be like, this is how I came to be. And just like, it's not how I became to become a lover of film, but how I became to be a craftsman of something, is truly, truly inspiring. And I know I left a 5-minute voice memo to you two about how I felt about that and how I connected on a personal level. So I think that is something that is worth noting. I think the Daniels will win because they won the Directors Guild and they're the clear outlier who will win the Academy Award. And good for them and good for the Oscars for picking something that's a little bit more adventurous. But man, I would love to see Tar. I would love to see Todd. I love to see Todd Fields kind of be successful.
Right. Yeah. One of our favorite activities for pre-gaming in college and out of college with my friends was watching music videos. And the fact that the Daniels directed Turn Down for What is just still like one of my favorite things, that music video led to an Oscar nomination. It's just so much fun for me personally. And I know that we've talked, Eric, about Nope being a snub for a lot of categories. For me, my snub in this category would be Jordan Peele. Do you feel the same, or do you think that this list is pretty deserving? Do you have any other snubs?
This list feels fairly deserving. I think Ruben Östlund's I love Triangle of Sadness. I don't know if it deserved, the directing of it necessarily deserved to be in this top five. I would have taken him out and put in Jordan Peele in that place. So my will is going to be the Daniels, and then my should. There's no surprise here. Todd Field. I mean, I'm
there. You go.
Yeah, I'm talking myself more and more into just saying that Tar was my favorite film of last year. But I will be excited for the Daniels.
Cool. August, do you have any snubs in this category?
This is tough. I really think Robert Eggers for The Northman. I don't really know why that movie just kind of came and went. I was reading that not like they built those structures with like actual tools that they had at the time period. Like that was his level of dedication to detail.
I did not know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, gee whiz, that guy really like cares about making it as authentic as possible, and I just got to give him props for that. And I also liked Decision to Leave. Park Chan-wook. Besides Danielle Detweiler, I think that not getting nominated for Best International Film was the biggest snub.
August, who is your Best Picture should win and will win? Or not
Best Picture,
Best Director, sorry.
Daniels for both.
I've jumped into Best Picture because I'm like ready to go for it. I'm ready for the conversation. I personally have some major issues with this list. Eric, how do you feel about the Best Picture list? What is your the one that you're rooting for besides Tar? Because we know it's Tar. But what are your favorites from the year, and are there any snubs for you on this list?
Overall, when I look at this list, I like it because it seems like to me one of the more accessible Oscar Best Picture lists in recent years. When I talk to people who may only watch 2 or 3 movies out of a year, most of them have seen at least one of the movies on this list. So just from the standpoint of accessibility, I enjoy it. I think the list is a little weak when we look at Elvis and when we look at Avatar: Way of Water. I know you all talked about that. I enjoyed Avatar, but it definitely wasn't one of the top 10 of the year. I am pulling, so I do love Tar, but my should and will is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Go back to what Michael said, seeing that almost a year ago and thinking, wow, this was incredible. Too bad it'll never win an Oscar. To the fact that we're talking about this as a front runner is pretty remarkable. I won't go through my entire list of snubs, but I will just harken back to Jordan Peele's Nope being one of my favorites that is not on this list. I also really enjoyed The Women King, going back to that accessibility aspect. I thought it was a beautifully made movie and it was a lot of fun to watch. So I would have loved to see that on there, maybe even more so than Avatar.
There are a few movies that I honestly don't like on the list. I really just did not get into Top Gun Maverick. I think it just kind of felt I don't want to get too
it's okay, you're safe.
It's a safe space.
Yeah.
It's a safe space.
I don't want to get too political, but I do feel like it felt like a military propaganda to me, and that just kind of really turned me off to the whole thing. But I get that it was a sensation. I get why it was nominated. I love The Northman. I know that it never had a shot. It was never in the conversation, but that was probably my second favorite movie after Everything Everywhere. I think Bones and All was great. Nope. After Sun, of course.
I think we have very similar opinions because I would just yeet Avatar, I would yeet Elvis, I would yeet The Fablemans, I would yeet Top Gun Maverick, and I would let Triangle of Sadness stay in there, but I personally think that if we're talking about an Eat the Rich movie, The Menu was by far my favorite. Way more than Triangle of Sadness. I would absolutely put that in there. I would put Nope in there for sure. Bones and All is both of our favorite movie of the year. We just connected to it on such like a deep level. And the fact that it's not even in the conversation like hurts my actual like
it
soul.
Makes me really sad.
But I also completely agree with you, August. I think The Northman was incredible. Like I remember when the movie ended, Caitlin, who like I would never have expected to like that movie, literally just looked at me and was like, that was a badass movie. Like that was so good. And just some of the shots in that movie like still stick with me today. Avatar and The Fablemans and Top Gun all just feel like they're in there kind of because of pedigree. Like it feels like it's just they're in there for who made it and the legacy of it, I guess. Now, Michael, I know you love both The Fablemans and Top Gun Maverick. Personal opinion aside, if you were thinking like, yes, I love Top Gun and I love The Fablemans, do you think that they truly do deserve to be in the Best Picture conversation?
Yeah, because I think going off of what Eric was saying, looking back at what the Oscars have been going through, we're talking about backlash, and it's one of them is the titles of the film that are nominated for movies of the year. And when you look at the history of the Oscars, it used to be the movies that made the most money would be a shoo-in. Then it slowly started moving into independent films and the most pedigree, like the art house side. Like you got like a lion's share of that. And then that slowly started, like that has kind of been the way the tides have been. And I think because of now more people are getting in, now people are being involved and included into the Academy, I will say that this has been, despite my feelings about some of these nominees, I think it is accessible and it actually shows the wide variety of what the medium of film is and how different, what they kind of represent to everybody, and the joy that, like, majority of the nominees are in my top 10.
Yeah.
If I were to talk about movies that I wish would have been nominees, I mean, I know I already talked about Emily the Criminal. I loved Saint Omer. I was a big advocate of The Menu, and of course, the day will come. I'm praying for the day that will come that a documentary would get nominated for Best Picture. But I really loved Fire of Love.
Okay,
and that should have been something that, like, documentaries need to be. That's like the next step, to show like the true lion's share of what film is. And I applaud that like 3 or 4 of them were just like big popcorn or popular films, like, and say what you will about Top Gun Maverick and what it may represent or what it kind of shows, but like I remember seeing that, and I just remember like feeling the joy of being in a theater and seeing something that is bigger than life itself, than the life that I live, and something that just took advantage of all elements, the visuals, the sound, the effects, like I felt the magic of the movies work on me, and I was laughing at myself that this was an unnecessary sequel to a movie that I don't even like to begin with. That's just what happens, though. It just happens to be that, and good for the Oscars for kind of like respecting, like, it is a technical craft, but it also, because my favorite film of the year, I wish could win. There's a part of me that think it might pull it off. Surprisingly, will be The Banshees of Inisherin, and the reason why I would choose that as the best film of the year is that at the end of the day, it's just visual storytelling, and to me, it just felt the most timeless. It felt like it had the most interesting theme, and it's the most human theme of just how are we existing? How does that reflect based on the people that we surround ourselves with the environment that we live in?
Mm-hmm.
It just felt so simple, and it felt like a folktale. It felt like something that I could actually tell the story of the Banshees of Inisherin. I could tell that to anyone that I know, and I could feel like I can captivate them. And the fact that worked from a visual level
Incredible.
was just so wonderful.
Yeah.
But I think Everything Everywhere All at Once, just again, the magic of the movies, the imagination of filmmaking, and all techniques. I think Everywhere All at Once will persevere in being the winner.
I think at this point it's kind of even hard for me to think of what would, like, betting wise, what would be second. I think it's kind of just Everything and then The Herd at this point.
Should win is Bones and All, which isn't even.
Justice for Bones and All.
Yeah, for real though. Like, am I the only one that liked it? I don't know. Like, I just.
Oh, I loved it. Top 10 movie of the year for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So happy to hear it. Extra credit. Will win. I don't know. I feel like Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win just because of the momentum. Just the idea of it is so expansive and different and what we have not seen and so revolutionary. I think I would be perfectly fine if it won, but I think Banshee should win because exactly what you just said, Michael. I think it was so simple and it was so pure and human and just so relatable and so timeless, and something that I think is just like this perfect little story that could easily have just been like a short story, honestly, and just told into, such a visual.
It did feel like something that you would have read in like high school English. Like,
absolutely.
Totally. Yes. And like the fact that it was written, like he came up with this incredible idea. I think for me, Everything Everywhere All at Once is the will win. I think the momentum is there. I think I would be shocked if Banshees won. I would be happy if Banshees won. Either way. I think for me, the dark horse, I know that it has no chance whatsoever, but I adore All Quiet on the Western Front. I think it is a gorgeous movie. I watched it when she was out hanging out with a friend one night, and when she came back home, I was like, I think that's the best war movie I've ever seen. And I'm going to stick to my guns on that, and I'm going to say that All Quiet on the Western Front is my favorite war movie I've ever seen, and it was done in such a way that, opposed to Top Gun, like you said, August, it was like showing the horrors of, militaristic expansion and war and all that. So I really love that movie.
What was everyone's favorite film from 2022?
It was Bones and All for both of us.
Yes.
Okay. Mine was Banshees, Vinny Sharon.
Tar, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
1A, 1B.
Yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for the Oscars this year. I think this is one of the more exciting years, I think, to go into the Oscar season. It was an incredible year for film. Yeah. Even if I might not agree with some of the Best Picture nominees, the other movies that weren't nominated that are just fresh in my memory, like all across the board, I think we got so much good filmmaking this year. Shout out to horror, especially. Yes. Horror killed it this year with we had Pearl and X, we had Barbarian, we had Nope. I think Bones and All can it's like indie horror. It definitely has that body gore element to it. I just want to shout out horror in general as a genre, because I think this is probably the best year for horror in quite some time. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. But thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been fantastic, and I can't wait. Hopefully we can do this next year again. This would be great to get the gang back together and make this a thing. So thank you guys so much again, and everybody who's joining us. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks for joining us on The Ride Home.